our people, for our communities, and for our planet. The actions we take here will resonate for generations, proving that when nations and people unite in a common quest for peace, progress, prosperity, and sustainability for all, we can surmount any obstacle and create the future we want. Let's get it done. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, this brings us to the end of the ceremonial opening of the high-level segment. Allow me to please ask you all to remain in your seats to allow our guests to leave the podium before we begin the delivery of national statements. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, honorable guests, I now declare open joint second meeting of COP28, CMP 18 and CMA 5. Today, heads of state and government will deliver their respective national statement. I'd like to inform you, Your Excellencies, of actions in place to ensure effective time management. There is a 3-minute time limit for statements during the high-level segment. Statements should be as concise as possible, noting the full texts of the official statements will be made available on the UNFCCC website. And finally, please note that heads of state or government who are not in the plenary at the time for delivery of their statements will be scheduled to speak at the end of all statements of the same category. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, honorable guests, the United Arab Emirates is delighted to welcome over 170 heads of states and government. Your presence here today is a testament to the milestone nature of this COP, to raise our shared ambition over this critical decade to keep 1.5 within reach. Success is underpinned by your commitment to take meaningful and tangible steps to address the climate crisis by implementing and achieving the long-term goals of the Paris Agreement and the ultimate objective of the Convention. It is essential that we expedite efforts towards implementing climate action. With political will and commitment, we can and must deliver an outcome in the United Arab Emirates that will allow for all of us to be proud of. Allow me now to ask everyone to get ready for us to begin. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, President of Egypt. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the Merciful, the Compassionate, my dear brother, Your Royal Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the UAE, heads of state and government, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me pleasure at the outset to congratulate the United Arab Emirates on presiding over the 28th Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC. I commend the exquisite organization, and I express my full confidence in the UAE's ability to achieve the goals of this conference. Like COP27, COP28 is taking place amid dangerous and grave political challenges that are no less dangerous than climate change, which requires of us political leaders to work diligently and sincerely to make sure that our conference reaches ambitious results and that contributes to the implementation of previous undertakings. As president of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh and a country directly impacted by climate change, Egypt is well aware of the importance of reinforcing collective work to address the challenge of climate change and to guarantee eco-friendly development to preserve planet Earth for coming generation and to address the present impacts of climate change that exceed the capacities of countries, including or especially developing countries, to cope with them and their impacts on the different sectors of development. Ladies and gentlemen, our responsibility is to reaffirm that we are committed to implementing the procedures that we have agreed on in line with the Paris Accords and in line with the state of the art of science and in pursuant to the principle of responsibility of all countries. It is important to underscore the principles of equity, just transition, collective but differentiated responsibility as precepts of multilateralism. In Sharm el-Sheikh, we have rolled out many initiatives that would contribute to achieving our aspirations in this regard, including the creation of a loss and damage fund for developing countries, and the Just Transition Work Program and the Emissions Reduction Work Program. We have also paved the way to a global goal for adaptation with climate change. In this framework, I'd like to express my appreciation of all of you in view of the results that we have seen this year in the discussions on the Just Transition or the Emissions Reduction Work Program in the sectors of energy and transport. We have also reached recommendations to operationalize their financing arrangements for developing countries, and we have also operationalized the relevant funds. The success of these efforts, however, hinges on the adequacy of financing and the funding arrangements in place, which necessitates that we have a joint view, including recommendations that would lead to the operationalization of all of these arrangements and to provide the necessary funding. Ladies and gentlemen, the achievement of all of these goals is possible if we work together in a spirit of cooperation and participation. Therefore, we call on the international community to take more ambitious steps in COP28 in Dubai and to expand the participation of communities and to refrain from any unilateral acts that only serve self-interests. And I look forward to more results from COP28, including a reinforced international framework for cooperation and to provide technical and financial support for developing countries. In conclusion, Egypt is committed to addressing the challenge of climate change, and I'd like to issue a global call to all parties to provide full support to the kindred country of the United Arab Emirates to guarantee that COP28 in Dubai would reach historic results that would reaffirm to all peoples of the world that we are determined and able to save planet Earth, the home of our life and the future of posterity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Majesty King Abdullah ibn al-Hussein, King of Jordan. Your Majesty, you have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful. My dear brother, Your Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Mr. Secretary General, Mr. President, I would like to first express my deep thanks and appreciation to my brother, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed and the United Arab Emirates for successfully organizing this international summit.
This year's conference of the parties must recognize, even more than ever, that we cannot talk about climate change in isolation from the humanitarian tragedies unfolding around us. As we speak, the Palestinian people are facing an immediate threat to their lives and well-being. In Gaza, over 1.7 million Palestinians have been displaced from their homes. Tens of thousands have been injured or killed in a region already on the front lines of climate change. The massive destruction of war makes the environmental threats of water scarcity and food insecurity even more severe. In Gaza, where people are living with little clean water and the bare minimum of food supplies, climate threats magnify the devastation of war. So, my friends, as we meet here today to talk about inclusivity in climate response, let's be inclusive of the most vulnerable. Palestinians severely impacted by the war on Gaza, populations around the world affected by conflict and poverty, and refugee families and host communities in our region and beyond. To address the real dangers of food insecurity in Gaza, Jordan has brought together all international partners to coordinate on mechanisms for the sustainable provision of food supplies to the Strip. And as a country where refugees make up over a third of our population, we launched the Climate Refugee Nexus last year. This global initiative prioritizes climate-related support and investments for refugee-hosting nations. We are truly grateful for the 58 countries that have supported this initiative so far. But much more needs to be done. My friends, Jordan contributes a slim 0.06% to global greenhouse gases. Yet we are greatly impacted by global climate change, which has caused threats to our scarce water resources, food sources, and ecodiversity. Today, Jordan's most ambitious and vital projects relate to water. A major national water project envisions desalinating Red Sea water from the Gulf of Aqaba and channeling it to major population areas. The National Water Conveyance Project will rely on renewable energy, a field where we have made significant strides. Our national energy strategy aims to generate 31% of electricity from renewables by 2030. Hybrid and electric vehicles represent 18% of our transport system. In other climate action, research at the Aqaba Marine Park will explore the unique resilience of the Red Sea's coral reefs to benefit the conservation and regeneration of coral reefs around the world. And I look forward to attending an event tomorrow on board the Ocean Explorer vessel to highlight this initiative. Nationally, with a strong talent pool of young entrepreneurs and qualified engineers, we are pressing forward with solutions in climate-smart agriculture, water conservation, clean energy innovations, and more. And some of our innovators are showcasing their work here at COP28. Jordan also launched its Green Finance strategy, the first in the region. and we issued our first green bond earlier this year. So, my friends, despite the challenges, Jordan has set an example in the region as a climate action pioneer and is emerging as a green tech hub. Yet just as the impact of climate change does not take place in a vacuum, no country's response succeeds alone. The global stocktake has shown us that our world is still far behind in achieving the goals set by the Paris Agreement. As we work to catch up on the lost time and progress, we cannot forget the most vulnerable. Conflict-ridden communities, refugees, and developing countries must not be left alone to face a global problem. Nor can we stand by as the massive destruction of a relentless war in Gaza threatens more people and holds back progress towards a better global future. Current and future generations will hold us all accountable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Majesty King Tupu VI, King of Tonga. Your Majesty, you have the floor.
Your Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to add my congratulations to the government and people of the United Arab Emirates for hosting COP28. Congratulations for a brilliant celebration to kick off the conference, coinciding with the UAE National Day at the human-centric city of the future. The warm welcome and gracious hospitality extended to us has been splendid. Mr. President, it's painful for the people of the small island developing states to see that COP28 may not be the milestone moment we had all been hoping for because of our slow progress on the Paris Agreement. The far-reaching impacts of climate change and disasters on human security and mobility displaces more than 50,000 Pacific people every year. At the 52nd Pacific Islands Forum last month, leaders endorsed the Pacific Partnership for Prosperity as a political prioritization process to mobilize resources to empower Pacific people to bring about transformational change through national and regional development. We need a Pacific-led, member-owned, and managed community resilience financing facility. We recognize Australia and New Zealand's commitments, and I therefore strongly urge all partners to contribute to funding the establishment of a Pacific Resilience Facility. We are ocean people. The ocean is our lifeblood. It feeds us, it is our mode of transportation, and part of our deep-seated culture, making COP28 and the themes outlined by UAE right in line with major gaps and challenges that Tonga and small island development states are experiencing in the areas of technology, innovation, inclusion, frontline communities, and finance. A 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent sees Pacific Island countries embarking on a blue technological revolution with innovation at the center, seeking to develop and deploy SIDS-appropriate technologies and looking at ways to improve climate resilience of the majority of the Tongan population. Tonga and Palau are champions of unlocking the Blue Pacific Prosperity Plan, which articulates the goals of 100% effective ocean management for the region and 30% protection of the Blue Pacific continent, aligned to Pacific country contexts, priorities, and capacities. Robust food systems underpinned by resilient ecosystems, resulting in healthy and productive Pacific people, and fit-for-purpose, sustainable financing mechanisms that support the implementation of the 2050 strategy. The ambitious agenda before us focuses on 4 paradigm shifts to guide our work under negotiating mandates and the Presidency's action agenda. But I believe that we can make major progress by placing one of those important shifts at the forefront of our debate, Mr. President. Let us put nature, people, lives, and livelihoods at the heart of climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It is my pleasure to welcome His Majesty Sultan Haji Hassanullah Bilqay, Sultan of Brunei. Your Majesty, you have the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency, President of COP28, Honorable Heads of States and Government, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my sincere appreciation to His Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, the government and the people of the UAE for hosting this summit. Excellency, climate change has emerged as our generation's most urgent challenge, threatening our existence. Unfortunately, initial results from the first global stocktake have revealed that we are not on track to limit global temperature rise not beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius and to prevent a global disaster. This underscores the need for a renewed sense of urgency to fulfill our Paris Agreement obligation. It also demands that developed countries honor past commitments and provide adequate resources and affordable technology to combat the impact of climate change. Despite accounting for a mere 0.017% of global emissions, Brunei Darussalam takes serious heed to this call for action. We are committed to balancing national development and environmental protection while pursuing sustainable growth for our economy. We have also maintained over half of our land area in pristine natural rainforest, with our mangrove ranks third largest in Borneo. In addition, we aim to plant 500,000 permanent trees by 2035, expanding our carbon sink further. Through our climate change policy, we are actively diversifying our energy mix by emphasizing our renewable. Collaborating with all stakeholders, including youth and the private sector, we are on track to achieve a 20% reduction in emission by 2030, as outlined in our NDC, paving the way to achieving net zero by 2050. 2 years ago, Brunei Darussalam took the lead in elevating a climate action at the regional level. This is why we will be hosting the ASEAN Center for Climate Change. It will facilitate enhanced climate change mitigation, and adaptation efforts across Southeast Asia through research, analysis, data exchange, and policy recommendations. Therefore, we welcome support and cooperation from all interested member states and international organizations to make this center meaningfully contribute regionally and to our global efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. William Ruto, the President of Kenya. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, the COP President, Your Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, fellow leaders, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, UN Secretary General, fellow leaders, as we convene here in Dubai, we must appreciate that the presence of almost 200 nations speaks volumes about the magnitude of this global event and what it stands for. This gathering is a testament to the universal recognition that among the multitude of global challenges confronting us today, climate change stands out as by far the defining issue of our era. COP28 underscores our shared commitment to confront with unwavering resolve a challenge that transcends borders, impacts every facet of human existence and well-being, and demands a concerted global response as a matter of grave urgency. The reality before us is irrefutable. According to the latest UN data, unless there is a significant and radical shift in our economic and industrial patterns, we are hurtling at a perilous velocity on a trajectory towards the dire scenario of a world that is warmer by 3 degrees Celsius. The evidence is alarming. In just the first 10 months of this year, we experienced 86 days where temperatures soared over 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. Adding to this worrying scenario is the fact that global greenhouse gas emissions have not decreased, but rather increased by a deeply worrying 1.2% between 2021 and 2022, culminating in a staggering 57.4 gigatons of CO2 equivalent, a record high that underscores the magnitude of the climate crisis we face. We must add that all the increases were experienced in the G20 countries, and many of them are here and they are listening. This crisis must never be seen as a distant threat. It is here now, indiscriminately devastating nations regardless of their size or wealth, thereby reshaping our world in a profound, unprecedented, and highly complicated ways. A stark illustration of this disastrous turn of events is currently unfolding in Eastern Africa, where catastrophic flooding has swiftly followed the most severe drought the region has seen in over 40 years. Scientific evidence clearly and strongly links these extreme weather events to human-induced climate change. Studies indicate that droughts are now at least 100 times more likely in parts of Africa than they were in pre-industrial era. This translates into a dramatic reduction in long-term rainfall, while short-term rainfall patterns remain erratic and unpredictable. All of us are already living in this dire reality. Kenya has been besieged by relentless torrents that have claimed lives and displaced countless communities. The ensuing injury, loss, and damage extends beyond immense human toll to the destruction of vital infrastructure and the disruption of critical supply chains across many vital sectors. Beyond mere logistical challenges, the devastation further complicates the daily struggle for survival for many households and communities. The situation in our Horn of Africa region, in many other developing countries, lay bare the harsh reality of climate change. It is a poignant reminder of its disproportionate impact and a call to action for all of us to mobilize rapidly to address this imbalance with urgency, solidarity, and inclusivity. We are also here because we are convinced of our collective ability to effect change. Our mission for this COP is clear: to foster radical cooperation that steers the world firmly back onto a 1.5 degrees Celsius ceiling. Equally critical, we are here to affirm our commitment to provide robust support to those of us who have contributed least to climate change, yet bear its most catastrophic impacts. As Africa, we are ready to play our part in full. The Nairobi Declaration, which we adopted at the conclusion of the first Africa Climate Summit, set out the vision and pathway for Africa to be a vital part of the global solution to the existential climate challenge we face. The declaration captures the consensus of the African government leaders for climate-positive growth that harnesses our ample human natural resources. It commits us to triple renewable energy capacity, establish green manufacturing, halt and reverse deforestation, promote sustainable agriculture, promote nature-based solutions, support the global call to phase down coal plants and eliminate inefficient fossil fuel production subsidies, and further amplify calls for a new global financial architecture and global carbon tax. In Kenya, we have transformed this vision into tangible goals. Our plan is ambitious to expand our current energy capacity of approximately 3 gigawatts to 100 gigawatts of entirely renewable power by 2050 as a cornerstone of our green industrialization strategy. This level of ambition must be matched by the global commitment to achieve concrete, action-oriented outcomes. The first global stocktake at this COP is not just a checkpoint. It is a crucial step forward in our collective response to climate change. It must therefore encompass strategies for mitigation, adaptation, addressing loss and damage, and fundamentally, the means of its implementation. Such a comprehensive approach will pave the way for a more inclusive and robust set of nationally determined contributions in the next cycle. At the heart of our discussion at this COP28 must be a package of ambitious energy transition and investment goals and incentives aligned with our commitment to maintain a global temperatures within 1.5 degree limit. This entails a pledge to triple renewable energy capacity and double energy efficiency by 2030, alongside a significant reduction in fossil fuel dependency. I commend my brother, the COP presidency, for their efforts to converge the world around this global call. The strong participation of traditional hydrocarbon energy leaders in this global endeavor has transformed the conversation and brought us closer to consensus based on democratic inclusion and the best spirit of collective action, as well as multilateralism. Notably, the vision demands deliberate support for developing countries. In the past 2 decades, only 2% of the $3 trillion invested globally in renewable energy has reached Africa, despite the continent's vast resource endowments and great need for investment. The consequences of this investment gap are starkly evident. More than 600 million Africans are deprived of basic energy services, which are fundamental to dignified living and access to essential services such as healthcare and education. The challenge is compounded by the fact that nearly 1 billion people in Africa do not have access to clean cooking amenities. A tendency to ignore Africa's developmental and industrialization needs and the failure to invest in our burgeoning young generation is no longer a tenable proposition. We cannot afford to neglect the immense potential or ignore the pressing needs of a continent on the cusp of transformative growth. Turning Africa into a green powerhouse is not just essential for the continent, it is also vital for global industrialization, decarbonization. Going forward, clear, actionable roadmaps for implementations are required. In turn, these call for a unified global effort to mobilize the necessary capital for both development and climate action. To echo the consensus projected at the Paris Summit, we must establish a new global financing pact which ensures that no country is ever forced to choose between its development aspirations and necessary climate action. Fundamentally, this is a call for an integrated approach where economic growth and developmental sustainability are not mutually exclusive, but are pursued in tandem for the greater global good. Finally, the urgency and magnitude of our task calls for far greater transformation than the incremental progress we have seen over the past 30 years. We need to execute quantum leaps in terms of both our strategic actions and technological innovation. What lies at stake is more than just a climate issue. It is a matter of guaranteeing dignified living and livelihoods for billions who lack basic necessities. Our response must match the scale of this global challenge with boldness and innovation. Given this context, the long-standing adversarial dynamic between global North and global South proves practically counterproductive. This division has hindered our ability to unite and leverage our collective strengths and robbed us of tremendous opportunities. Yet, in the face of a threat that endangers the health of our planet and our very existence, we must find in collective action a force that neutralizes and transcends these divisions. Climate change does not respect artificial distinctions, traditional boundaries, or old antagonisms. Instead, it should unite us against a shared, borderless challenge. Consequently, our approach must be collaborative, inclusive, and anchored in justice. This means making decisions that prioritize the well-being of every person while acknowledging that climate action is inextricably linked to social justice and equity. In this room, ladies and gentlemen, we have the power, the means, and most of all, the responsibility to act. The world is watching, and what we deliver at COP28 will be a testament of whether we are capable guardians of this planet and competent stewards of its stability. COP28 and the global stocktake are elements of a strong and clear call to conscience on behalf of the global community. Let us not be satisfied with another minimal increment, but rather let us make this COP a turning point towards a just, equal world of opportunity, safe from the looming threat of a climate disaster. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Shafgat Mirziyoyev, President of Uzbekistan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Distinguished heads of delegations, I echo the words of sincere gratitude to the President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, for the invitation to this undoubtedly historic summit and the exceptional organization of the forum. We commend the global initiative of the United Arab Emirates in combating climate change and its significant contribution to green development. I take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the United Arab Emirates on the National Day and wish continued prosperity to its people. Dear participants of the summit, the climate problems have already turned into a main threat to global sustainable development. These challenges are even affecting the global geopolitical landscape. The adverse effects of climate change are particularly evident in Central Asia and its neighboring regions due to one of the most tragic contemporary environmental disasters, the Aral Sea catastrophe. In this regard, I would like to draw your attention to the following facts. In our region, the increase in air temperature is twice as high as global average indicator. In recent years, the number of extremely hot days has increased 2 times, and 1/3 of the glaciers have melted down completely. The soil erosion is impacting the lifestyle of over 30 million people in our region. Strong sand and dust storms are becoming a new normal. Water scarcity, air pollution, loss of biodiversity, and a sharp yield decrease in agriculture are ever growing. In short, these global challenges are reaching their peak point in our vast region. Esteemed participants of the summit, transition to a green economy and achieving carbon neutrality are the key strategic objectives of new Uzbekistan. In recent years, the share of alternative energy in our country has doubled. In cooperation with the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, China, Turkey, and other foreign partners, we are working on creating 25 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030. We have made first practical steps on green hydrogen production as part of the Yashil Makan Green Space Initiative. 1 billion trees are being planted in our country. We intend to increase the area of green zones in cities to 30% in order to create a resilient protective belt on the. This is a exhibit of the Aral Sea. We have planted forests on the area of over 2 million hectares. With your permission, I would like to share the following proposals. First, we call for finalization of the global climate change adaptation framework as part of the Paris Agreement. We are developing the adaptation strategy within the Central Asian Climate Dialogue Platform. Additionally, we highly value yesterday's agreement on the establishment of loss and damage funds. Second, global transition to a low-carbon economy must be fair, transparent, and inclusive. The interests of developing countries that are suffering great losses due to climate change must be taken into account. It would be expedient to consider these urgent problems as part of G7 and G20 agendas. Third, in accordance with the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly, we are keen to transform the Aral Sea region from environmental disaster zone to a hub of innovations, technology, and new opportunities. In order to implement advanced knowledge, experience, and solutions in this region, I invite you all to a close cooperation to set up an international climate technology expo hub. Fourth, the time itself requires from us to actively fight climate change by extensively using scientific knowledge and promoting joint research. I invite leading and renowned scholars and experts from your respective countries to participate in the Climate Scientific Forum to be organized under the auspices of Green University in Tashkent. I believe that such pressing issues as prevention of land degradation, sustainable water use, ensuring guaranteed food security, and other issues will be included in the agenda of the forum. Fifth, we intend to organize a conference in Uzbekistan in 2024 on the topic of climate migration in cooperation with the United Nations. We also propose to develop the Green Jobs Initiative and establish a center for modeling the climate change impact on employment in collaboration with the International Labour Organization. In order to effectively address climate issues and actively engage youth, we are ready to organize COP Youth Conference at high level. Esteemed friends, Uzbekistan remains committed to universal ideas on fighting against climate change. For this noble purpose, I call for support for our initiative to hold the Samarkand International Climate Forum next year and to adopt a special resolution of the United Nations General Assembly, which reflects our regional approach. I firmly believe that the results of today's summit will bring closer the friendly states and peoples in ensuring a more sustainable, prosperous, and secure future for our planet. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my honor and distinct pleasure to welcome His Highness Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Vice President and Deputy Prime Minister, Chairman of the Presidential Court of the United Arab Emirates. Your Highness, you have the floor.
In the name of God, the Merciful, the Compassionate, dear participants, peace and blessings be upon you. We welcome you to the United Arab Emirates, the country sums up the whole world and that has grand ambitions for a world that enjoys peace and progress. We work today for tomorrow and we cooperate for the generations of the future. History teaches us that without cooperation we wouldn't have reached this level of progress. The success of humanity was only a result of the scientific cooperation and the cultural communication and the exchange of knowledge. This has gone on for thousands of years, and peoples and countries have exchanged for millennia. In the name and on behalf of the people of the UAE, we affirm that we are serious in our quest to address climate change. We were the first to pledge to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. We have allocated $163 billion for expansion of renewables and to transition towards new and renewable energies. His Royal Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, may God protect him, has announced that the creation of a fund worth of $30 billion to diversify and to support climate action. We also have a governmental working group that leads our agenda of climate action. We take pride in hosting the world and this global climate action summit. Again, we welcome you in the United Arab Emirates, and we reaffirm our firm commitment to work for Earth. And we echo and repeat our firm position that communication and cooperation between nations is the only way to surmount the climate challenges besetting Earth. Thank you, and peace and blessings be upon you.
Thank you, Your Highness. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President of Brazil. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. Saldan Al-Jaber, the President of COP28, Your Excellencies, guests, it's a great responsibility to be here in Dubai today. We are facing what may be the greatest challenge that humanity has faced till now. Instead of uniting forces, the world is going to wars. It feeds divisions and deepens poverty and inequalities. The path of COP28 to COP30 in Brazil will dictate our future. Here, we will have the first global assessment about the Paris Agreement. At COP29, we will define a new quantifiable way to financing. And in the city of Belém, we will formulate our National Determined Contributions, NDCs. The last IPCC report is categorical about the danger of the increase of the global temperature will go beyond 1.5 degrees. The goal of the Paris Agreement is to keep between 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, which is not sufficient to contain the global warming at a safe level. We have a collective problem of ination or a lack of ambition. The NDCs that we have today are not being implemented in the pace that we expected. And even if they were, they would not keep the temperature below the limit or the cap of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Brazil adjusted its NDC and committed itself to reduce 48% of the emissions till the year 2025 and 53% till 2030, besides reaching climate neutrality till 2050. Our NDC is much more ambitious than of many countries that pollute the atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. And we keep the firm commitment to have zero deforestation in the Amazon till 2030. We already managed to reduce almost 50% in the first 10 months of this year, which avoided the emission of 250 million tons of carbon in the atmosphere. But many countries from the global south will not have the proper conditions to implement their NDCs and neither to take more ambitious goals. The most vulnerable countries cannot have to choose between to fight climate change and fight poverty. They will have to do both things. The principle of common responsibility but differentiated is unnegotiable. To threat that goes against any basic notion of climate fairness. This notion demands that we should comply with the obligations for financing and technology transfer. It is unacceptable that the promise of $100 billion per year that was taken by the developed countries doesn't get out of a piece of paper, while in just in the year 2021, the military expenses reached $2 trillion. In Brazil, the climate emergency is already a reality. The Amazon region is going through, in this moment, an unprecedented drought. The level of the rivers is the lowest in 120 years. I could never imagine that this would happen in a place where we have the greatest reservoir of fresh water of the world. But the future of the Amazon doesn't rely only on the Amazonians. The deforestation of the world only answers for 10% of the global emissions. Even if we did not cut any tree, the Amazon could reach a point of no way back if other countries don't do their share. The increase of the global temperature could trigger an unreversible process of salinization of the Amazon. The energy, manufacturing industry, and transportation emit much more greenhouse gas effects. We have to deal with all these sources. That's why Brazil is proposing the mission 1.5, a collective mission that will keep us on the tracks of 1.5 degrees Celsius. In 2 years, till COP30, we will have to double the efforts to implement the NDCs that we committed ourselves. And in the city of Berlin, we have to announce more daring NDCs and to guarantee the means to implement and make them concrete. The developing countries need positive incentives to promote measures of climate action aligned with their development priorities. In Brazil, in the indigenous people mythology that says that the Amazon River was born from the tears that came from the moon. The moon had to leave aside its love for the sun so that the earth would not be destroyed by the heat of the sun. If we don't leave our differences aside on behalf of something bigger, the life and planet will be endangered and it will be too late to cry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Charles Michel, President of the European Council, and Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. Your Excellencies, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président de la COP28,
Mr. COP28 President, Excellencies,
en votre titre et qualité,
ladies and gentlemen,
des inondations qui ravagent,
there are floods that cause devastation, fires as well. Uprooted and displaced populations. No longer can any continent escape the tragedy of climate change. And however, science, knowledge, reason
le diagnostic
have led us to the diagnosis, not only the diagnosis, but we are also aware of the solution. We need to maintain the goal of 1.5 degrees, and we must, as soon as possible, rid ourselves of our dependence on fossil fuels, which puts our shared future in danger. Ladies and gentlemen, this summit is not just a conference. This summit is in reality a review of our conscience even, having a global stocktake of the Paris Agreement and above all acting more and acting faster. We welcome the leadership of Antonio Guterres. We also welcome the manner in which the UAE has been committed to making this COP a success. For its part, the EU is fully mobilized and committed. We would like to continue to play a driving role. The climate transition and our Green Deal development program will see us implementing packages of measures which will radically transform our economic development paradigm. We will make progress with a 30% reduction in emissions since 1990. We believe in the carbon mechanism to continue making progress, and we call on others to support us. We would like to triple renewables and double the energy efficiency, and we will be supporting developing countries. We express our solidarity, and we know it is our responsibility. This is an issue of trust. This is why we will honor our commitments of 100 billion euros, 23 million raised this year by the EU. We are committed to a just transition, and we are mobilized to support the Loss and Damage Fund. 220 million was announced yesterday by the EU as a team. We also support the reform of various institutions. We would like more justice and inclusion. The World Bank had 7 times the capitalization as compared to before, and the EU is very loyal and committed. Because the earth belongs to all of us, it belongs to our children. This is not a publicity slogan. This is an existential reality. The decade that is opening up is crucial. We are fully mobilized to work alongside all of you to protect humanity. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Mr. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Fellow leaders, last September at the Climate Action Summit in New York, we called for concrete action. Now in Dubai, we have to deliver. At this COP, we will set a decisive step forward to protect the most vulnerable citizens worldwide. They undergo runaway climate change. They suffer loss and damage, and we will stand by their side. This COP is about ambition, it is about targets, and it is about finance. Let me start with ambition. Global emissions must peak by 2025. We must phase out fossil fuels, and we must reduce methane emissions. But what we are calling for globally, we also have to deliver domestically. So let me report on what we do in the European Union. The European Union has peaked already. We have reduced emissions, and we are on track to overshoot our target for 2030. And we just adopted a law to drastically reduce methane emissions. Second, on targets. This COP can make history. Last spring, the European Union launched a call to triple renewables and to double energy efficiency by 2030. We were joined by some early champions like the COP presidency, President Ruto, Prime Minister Motley, and many thanks to the International Energy Agency and IRENA for your strong support. By now, our call has grown into a powerful movement. More than 110 countries have already joined. That's fantastic. So I call now on all of us to include these targets in the final COP decision, because this sends a strong message to investors and consumers alike. There is no doubt the future of energy will be clean, it will be affordable, and it will be homegrown. And finally, on finance, we must meet the 100 billion target this year. Europe consistently delivered. Last year, the European Union contributed close to $30 billion in public climate finance. And of course, the European Union will contribute to the new Loss and Damage Fund. As of today, Team Europe is contributing more than $270 million so far. We must get the fund up and running, and we must do it fast. But we all know more is needed. We need to reform the international financial system. We need a strong green bond market. And we need more carbon pricing. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow leaders, dear friends, I wish for a successful COP28. Many thanks.
Thank you, Your Excellency. May I remind the Speaker to maintain 3 minutes speaking time limit. Thank you. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Mr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, President of COP28, Your Highnesses and Majesties, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in Copenhagen, we committed $100 billion annually for climate action. Though far less than required, it is still not forthcoming. In Paris, we resolved to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. However, the current rate of warming is alarming. It must be said, unfulfilled commitment erode solidarity and trust and have detrimental and costly consequences for developing countries. My own country is losing 2 to 3% of its GDP due to climate change. Excellencies, the clock is ticking. This year's IPCC report cautioned that adaptation options that are visible and effective today will become constrained and less effective with increasing global warming. Putting in place the global goal on adaptation framework is a matter of urgency and not a choice. We must match our intent with our actions, and we must act now. The decision is therefore ours: adhere to science or face the consequences. On our part, the United Republic of Tanzania, despite of our minimum emission contribution, we are doing our part. At this COP28, we seek to mobilize support for increased use of clean and affordable cooking fuels and technologies across Africa, especially for women. Our call is for all of us to play our part. Excellencies, honoring our commitments and advancing the pace of climate action is the solution to this scourge. As we seek to unite, act, and deliver here in Dubai, we must deliver on climate finance. Thanks for effecting the loss and damage fund. So let us now make the fund be accessible for developing countries, predictable, and of course, transparency should be the way of operation. I thank you very much for your...
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Gitanas Nausėda, President of Lithuania. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, every year we come together to talk about the need for change. To get the change we so desperately need, we must become the change. For many years now, Lithuania, together with the whole European Union, has been undergoing, an ambitious transformation and working on the global climate action. At first, Lithuania made a strategic decision to seek energy independence. We have built our own LNG terminal, which decreased prices and turned Lithuania into a regional gas hub. Now we are proudly sharing our expertise worldwide. Today, we see renewable energy as the ultimate means of securing full energy independence and resilience, while also helping the planet Earth. By 2030, Lithuania is going to shift from the net importer of electricity to a self-sufficient green energy producer. We plan for renewable electricity generation to grow almost sevenfold. Last year, Lithuania was the second country globally in the solar energy generation increase. My country intends to use excess renewable electricity capacities to produce green hydrogen and to address energy efficiency. The second pillar of the green transformation, through new ambitious plans. Our general aim is to achieve a 70% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to 1990 levels and to become climate neutral by 2050. The global response, too, can only be strengthened by methodical adaptation to climate change. We must all seek to be more resilient, to change our habits, and to reduce existing vulnerabilities. We also have to address the worst cases of ecocide, such as the one committed by Russia in its war of aggression against Ukraine. These actions are incompatible with international law and go against our joint efforts to stop climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, today Lithuania strongly commends the Presidency for a strong global response to the first global stocktake of the Paris Agreement. We call on all leaders to approve global 2030 renewables and energy efficiency targets. Let us work together as one team. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, President of Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, allow me to express my